Bengals getting stuff done. Maybe. Trey Hendrickson reporting to camp. Will he actually practice, though? A deal not quite done yet. And Aaron Rodgers to DK Metcalf. Is that a problem for the rest of the NFL? All that and more on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers. Thanks for hanging with us through the almost preseason now. Hall of Fame game coming quick. Got some breaking news on that one as well, Matt. And some big news around the NFL that, of course, we've got covered for you every day here on the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts, and hit us with those mailbag questions on Twitter or in the YouTube comments. Today's episode of P&W brought to you by Gametime and the Gametime app. And all you got to do right now is download the Gametime app, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. And you know what time it is for the Bengals? It's time for defensive ends. Training camp. Yeah, and it's trade time, maybe. So, earlier, just a couple of days ago, they did get the contract done with first-round pick Shamar Stewart. So he is now in camp and practicing for the first time with the Cincinnati Bengals this week. And now, according to ESPN sources and Mr. Adam Schefter, Trey Hendrickson is planning to report to Bengals camp Wednesday, ending his holdout without being any closer to a new deal, which is key in this whole thing, per sources. Reporting to camp stops the $50,000 per day fines and also serves as a good faith gesture to try to jumpstart negotiations. And it was the final quote unquote holdout in the NFL. Now, what I take from this is Trey Hendrickson just doesn't want to get fined anymore, and there's zero chance he's actually going to be practicing until that deal is done. So what we have is no longer a holdout, but a hold in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought the same thing is, hey, for anyone, well, basically anyone, 50 grand a day isn't real fun and starts adding up pretty quick. I mean,
a little bit more rough for some than others. I mean, it would be quite difficult for the Peacocks and Williamsons of the world to withstand the $50,000 a day fines. Even for Trey Hendrickson, I'm sure that was tough to stomach.
Maybe Mrs. Hendrickson's like, why don't you go to camp, dude? You made your point.
Yeah, your hamstring's a little tight anyway, so go.
Yeah, exactly. But so that's exactly what I took away from it too. But also the words you said were good faith. I mean, I think it's also a step in the right direction for Hendrickson to say, okay, let's start to be friends again. You know, we're going to be around each other. He's going to eat lunch with Burrow and his defensive line mates and be a part of things. Rarely are these situations a distraction. It's not like they're protesting out front or, you know, being loud and a pain about in the locker room, or who knows. But
sometimes it is. In fact, Trey Hendrickson himself held an impromptu press conference at a Bengals practice, right? And so it could be somewhat of a distraction. It's going to be what all the reporters are asking about on Wednesday. Maybe they can get past that and they've
been asking about it anyways, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we saw this firsthand last year, and in fact, it's funny because you are now back at the dorms. For those of you listening at home,
two people might have mixed them.
Listening at home, you might think that Matt sounds a little different today. He is in the dorms, St. Vincent College, Latrobe, PA, at Steelers training camp. So we're going to talk a lot about that a little bit later. But do you remember 1 year ago, and there was a hold in with the team I cover, the San Francisco 49ers, and it was a little bit of a distraction with Brandon Ayuk and kind of being around. And there was, these awkward handshakes in midfield with the coach and the holdout player that neither guy was really happy. And you could tell there was some awkwardness too. So you're really not out of the woods until that deal is signed. And in fact, just about a year from now, I think you were in Latrobe. Is it Sharkies?
Oh yeah, Sharkies. That's
Sharkies. And I can't remember if Coach Tomlin was there or not, but wasn't there some chest bumps and high fives because the Steelers thought they had traded for Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah, it's funny. As soon as you said Ayuk, I got a little PTSD of being in my dorm room here and going to Sharky's because that's all we talked about in this camp a year ago too. When's Ayuk coming? Is that going to happen? Blah, 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 blah. Of course it didn't. And I was also thinking it seems like a long time ago because TJ Watt just signed his contract, but he held in here. I think he was the last Steeler to hold in. And that couldn't have been more cordial. Like, he's sitting there, arm around Coach Tomlin. They're, before things, he's chatting it up with, Cam Hayward, working out on his own, but that one was not at all contentious, So back to Hendrickson, though, I don't think the Watt contract is a stimulator for this, but maybe Cincinnati decided, whoa, Watt got more than I thought. Let's hash this thing out sooner than later before Parsons beats us to the punch.
Right.
And I think Hendrickson's probably thrilled about the Watt deal. So I don't know, and at least it's progress. I'm kind of tired of talking about this, and this is a team that's trying to contend and possibly can. They have to get this guy locked up. Come on.
I was asked while you were on vacation last week in the mailbag to do a Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks. Did one for kind of all time, and then one from year 2000 on. And it was kind of off the top of my head a little bit, but, and I was thinking of different quarterbacks and, Elway didn't make it, but should have been in consideration. Dan Marino is another one. Mm-hmm. And I kind of stopped and thought about this a little more later that night after that episode. And Joe Burrow has a real opportunity to become the next Dan Marino, which is both very good and very bad. Right. And you be the guy who goes to a Super Bowl early in his career, doesn't win one, and then never goes back because he has has
an awesome career.
Right. And he's awesome Hall of Fame guy, but you can't get a ring. And it's funny because it's almost hovering over Dan Marino's career in life. I'm sure that he's the greatest quarterback that doesn't have a Super Bowl championship. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's the first thing I think of Dan Marino. Oh, he didn't win a ring, which is insane. And it should never be the first thing you think of, but it is the first thing I think of. And you need these defensive players. You need Trey Hendrickson if you think you're going to go try to even compete for a Super Bowl and even compete for a really tough division there in the North. And we're going to talk a lot about the AFC North today with the Steelers information from camp coming up. But Joe Burrow is great, a Hall of Fame guy in Dan Marino. Joe Burrow doesn't want to be the next Dan Marino. So it's important to get that defense ready to go for the Bengals.
Yeah, and I do think Burrow's very much on a Hall of Fame pace. I mean, he's a MVP-ish type player right now. If he can keep it up and stay healthy, that's a Hall of Fame pace. And you don't want to be Marino. And what's different than like Allen and Jackson is Burrow has gone once in his career, failed in that game. Not that it was all his fault, of course, that's not what I mean. But then maybe probably, I always play this game. Do you think quarterback X is ever going to win a Super Bowl? Like you could do it the day Trevor Lawrence got drafted, or Stroud after his awesome rookie year, or Jaden Daniels right now, super early. But I think it's even more fun to do it with the established guys. Like Josh Allen's awesome. Do you think he's ever going to win a Super Bowl? Lamar Jackson,
If it was, even odds, it's smarter money to put no.
It's always better to bet no. I mean, as long as Mahomes exists and as long as Brady existed, and Aaron Rodgers is amazing, but he has one. Breeze was amazing. He has one, so the answer should always be no. I would still vote yes on Allen and Jackson. I don't think I'd vote yes on Burrow, though.
No way. I don't know how you could. They have to prove that they can put that team together. And even though they've got
some other hotshot quarterbacks that enter the league next year, and
it's just so tough because, and we've seen this. You go back to Marino, it's like, shoot, okay, you run into Joe Montana in the beginning of the actually kind of entering the prime of in 1984, the second championship for Joe Montana and that Bill Walsh in that 49ers dynasty. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, that gives way, but now it's still in the NFC and it's the Cowboys and it's the Packers.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden career's over and just ran into basically kind of dynasties my whole career. And it's kind of happening right now with Patrick Mahomes. And as good as all those other teams are, they're all Dan Marinos right now.
Right. I mean, someone of those three in the AFC, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, certainly won't get one. I mean, no way would I bet all three are going to end up with the Super Bowl ring. And the Bengals are the team I trust the least.
So hopefully for the Bengals' sake and Joe Burrow's sake and Trey Hendrickson's bank account's sake, they're able to figure this out and maybe smooth over some of the fines so they don't quite exist. And this gets talks going again, and Trey Hendrickson is able to get into camp. Yeah, and you don't need him. He needs to play 0 snaps in the preseason, right? You just got to get him ready to go, ramp up his conditioning, make sure he's ready to go in week 1 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let Shamar Stewart play all those preseason snaps. And,
it'd be great not to talk about it anymore either.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure Bengals fans are like, can we talk about that 5th round rookie and not
the O-line or who else is playing well on defense or something,
Speaking of big storylines that everyone's talking about with the Pittsburgh Steelers, it is their new dynamic passing and receiving duo in Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf. We'll get some firsthand reports from Matt Williamson on what that new look offense looks like for the Pittsburgh Steelers and just training camp life in general, and a whole lot more. Some of the notes from around the league as well. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Gametime and the Gametime app. And if you don't have Gametime ready to go and download it, I don't know what you're doing with your life, because I know you're a sports fan. I know you're an NFL fan. And if you ever want to buy tickets to a football game, college or pro, a baseball game, you want to go see a concert, you want to go see a comedy show, Gametime has the tickets, and you can get up to 60% off killer last minute deals. And we've all been there, logging in early. You're trying to get that concert, waiting forever to get those concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot to a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that's where Gametime comes in. If you're tired of the endless scrolling, you're trying to find the best seats, the best deal, Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats for you in a section, and you can save more. Panoramic views, no surprise fees. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets for concerts, comedy shows, and of course, sporting events with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so take us through it. Latrobe, PA, St. Vincent. What is a day in the life of NFL training camp for someone who covers the team? And of course, we've got to talk about Aaron Rodgers and the early returns, what it looks like there. And unfortunately, from what I understand, that first padded practice for the Steelers was rained out today, so we didn't get to see Rodgers and Metcalf versus pads. But I think you could probably take a lot away from the early. Just the early period of Aaron Rodgers as a Steeler since he signed.
So where do you want to start? Do you want to talk like Steeler football stuff or day in the life of Williamson at camp?
Well, yeah, you know what? I think the listeners would love to hear about a day in the life. So let's start there, and then we'll get into what you see on the field.
Okay. So Steelers centric. They had their four acclimation period practices ending Sunday. So they were done Sunday. They got Monday off. So Sunday night after my show, I'll tell you the times here in a minute, I drove home because the vacation I was on last week. I hadn't been home in like 10 days. So Sunday night, I get home rather late, hang out with the wife and fam for like 2 hours or whatever before everyone's basically asleep, and then slept in my own bed, which was wonderful. So Monday was basically a normal day at home. So I wasn't at camp. So Tuesday, we're recording this today, I left my house around 10 a.m. It's about an hour and a half back and forth, which isn't bad. I could conceivably go home any night, but it's a pain in the butt. So I left here at my house around 10, got here around 11:30, give or take, which is earlier than I needed to be here. But the outpouring of fans coming to St. Vincent's is always crazy, but this year is even crazier. Like Saturday, I got stuck in traffic with all the unwashed masses. I couldn't get to my room. I couldn't get behind the scenes. I had to do some illegal stuff to like get in this weird parking lot. I can tell you about it behind the scenes, but whatever. So anyway, I left a little earlier knowing that it was going to be crazy. And a lot of it's because people are psyched about Rodgers and Metcalf and blah, blah, blah. I just want to see new people. So anyways, I get here, get to my dorm room. What you see is rather terrible, to be honest with you. It's all cement. There's like 4 dorm rooms in this little hallway pod, they call it. And one of them is way smaller than the other. And this is the second time in 3 years I got stuck with the one way smaller than the other. It's pretty claustrophobic in here. There's a bed. There's a desk that this is sitting on. And you can see the towel over my left shoulder that's drying from my shower in this like a stand-up closet. So anyway, I get here and I do my normal morning routine today of just going through the web, finding stuff to talk about, research, etc. And then I go lunch lunch is open for like 2 hours because media, all the people behind the scenes, players, coaches, anyone employed can go, but you have to have a pass. Not just anybody walks in there. And lunch is awesome. I mean, the food is NFL caliber. There's a million things to pick from. So I always make sure I eat my meals here, not home. So I just had like a tiny breakfast to save up for lunch. So that's great. Sometimes there's a player sitting right next to you. Sometimes there's tons. Sometimes there's none. Just depends what time you walk in there and how your schedule correlates with them. And they're very unreserved and joking, and you get a pretty good vibe for the team, which is very fortunate. It's a cool thing to do. Then I go up to the press box. I mean, St. Vincent's has a football team. It's not good. It's the lowest level you've ever seen. But there is a press box at Chuck Noll Field that I think the Steelers probably paid for. That's very small, but wonderful for me. It is air conditioned. And there's a little fridge there full of waters and iced teas or whatever you want and, whatever you need. So I watch practice from the press box, looking down in cool environment where a lot of people do what I do are on the field, sweating like crazy, waiting to get a player interview, blah, blah, blah. But that goes from 2 to 5. So it's pretty long. We do 3 20-minute segments basically per hour, 3 hours of it. And then from there, I'm not usually that hungry because I eat a bigger lunch, but there's still a free meal right back at the calf between 5 and 6:30. So I always go, and sometimes I just get a to-go box for later, or I just have something small, or whatever. Sometimes I stuff my face, whatever I'm in the mood for. And then I come back here, chat with you. Is what we're doing now, live here. And I do another local podcast, kind of breaking down the day, the Scout's Eye on DK football, Pittsburgh sports. And that's like a 10-minute podcast. If you're Steelers, it's Steeler-centric. It's only Steeler. We're not talking Chargers or Raiders or whatever. And then when I'm done with all that stuff, probably buzz through the shower, head over to Sharky's, have a blast, go as late as that once, and pretty much talk about football the whole time we're there. So it's not a bad gig.
Not much different than whoever is in those dorms for school. Hit Sharky's until the night's over. Then you come back and curl up in the bed and not worry about how small the room is. Did your son, when he was going off to college, consider St. Vincent's? And did you talk him out of it? He's like, no, I've been in those dorms. I don't think you want to go there.
And plus he's 6'5". He would be real claustrophobic in this dorm and hanging off the bed. And like, I barely fit on the bed and I'm 6'3". So no. But the only thing different about like tomorrow is I'll wake up here in this crappy bed, use the community shower, not the one in my house. And then I'll record Locked On Dynasty at 11 in the morning and then basically rinse, repeat. And it gets to be very Groundhog Day around here too. You forget, is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Is it Wednesday or Thursday? Because practice is the same time. Everything's the same time. Everything looks the same. Everyone starts to smell the same,
By the way,
it's cool. I mean, it's an honor. But you're happy to go home after about 3 weeks too.
Oh yeah. Camping's fun, and especially when you do it back to back with your vacation. Yeah, that bed look real good, I think, at home. Hold on though, we got breaking news.
Oh, good.
Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh said that Trey Lance will start against the Lions in the Hall of Fame game on Thursday.
Ah, cool. Well, we knew it wasn't going to be Herbert. Knew it wasn't going to be Herbert. I think
wasn't getting snaps.
I'm sorry, broke up there.
So there we
probably
go.
My
we got some. We got some. It's nice to have some breaking news about actual football. It's not even training camp. It happens so fast with that Hall of Fame game that comes soon. So on a future episode, we're going to talk more about Hall of Famers, past and present and future as well. And I know we already have some questions from past mailbags that we'll probably get to as well. So feel free to hit us with any of those Hall of Fame questions as we go through the Hall of Fame period of the preseason, and then everyone's at it here in just a couple weeks, so less than a couple weeks. So yeah, it goes quick once training camp actually goes. A couple padded practices and you're playing football.
So I do want to mention though, I think that's good news. I mean, we knew Herbert wasn't going to start. Lance is at least an interesting player, whether the ship sailed on him or not. Right. I mean, at least I'll watch his reps. There's a lot of starters in the Hall of Fame game that I don't care about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that can wane pretty quickly too. Even if you were interested at first, you're like, okay, that wasn't as exciting as I hoped that would be.
And to bring this full circle, that will be a Sharky's watch. That will not be me staring at the all 22, rewinding every play.
Yeah. Hall of Fame game. Trey Lance and the Chargers against the Detroit Lions, and I don't even know. Dan Orlovsky, for all I know, is the
maybe Hendon Hooker. That'd be kind of interesting.
Oh, actually, wow, I didn't think about that. Hendon Hooker, Trey Lance, about as fun as you could dial it up.
That's about as good as it gets. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, now I'm psyched. The damn NFL does this to me every year. They actually make me excited for the Hall of Fame game after I make fun of how you should never get excited about it. And then I will watch 5 minutes and I'll be like, why did I get excited about it?
Hey, at least you'll be at Sharky's. I think that's a good plan. I'm going to have to go somewhere. It's not my usual football watching cube and maybe have a cold one while I watch that game.
Good move.
Next, Aaron Rodgers. So,
Pat McAfee's going to be here tomorrow, too.
Oh, there we go. Pat McAfee.
So tomorrow is a little bit different day.
So I'm sure there's going to be lots of new information.
Massive stage set up right outside the dorms, and he's a Pittsburgh guy, so there's going to be a huge to-do with that.
Nice. All right. Next, let's talk Aaron Rodgers. How has he looked so far as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and is him and DK Metcalf exactly what they needed to compete in 2025? Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Yeah, it's football season. Real live games happening Thursday. And football is back. That means you're firing up the group chat. You're getting your draft boards ready. Buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and the overreactions we all live for, those preseason darlings that really start to shoot up those draft boards as you approach Labor Day weekend. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. And of course, I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy this year, and you should too, whether you're a first timer or a veteran like Matt and myself who've played 1 million Yahoo Fantasy leagues. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th, so stay tuned and start by creating your own or joining a Yahoo Fantasy league. You don't even have to know anybody. You can just go join a public league at Yahoo Fantasy. Go to yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL to get started. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, lay it on us. How has the Aaron Rodgers era gone so far? I know you missed the padded practice because of weather on Tuesday, but you've seen enough training camp practices, and we've seen him at the podium, and I'm sure you have gotten a feel of what it's been like being around Aaron Rodgers. And is it different? Is the vibe good for how well the Steelers might be quarterbacked this year? Because it hasn't gone great in recent history.
Yes, the vibe is very good. But we probably had this conversation 365 days ago where I said, boy, the vibe's really good around Russell Wilson, too. Yeah. You can tell that this guy won a lot of games. He's got a presence about him, and all eyes are on him. Now, I think Rodgers has taken that to a new level. I think he's always been better than Wilson and probably always will, give or take. But you can't help but be pretty impressed, just how he's handling his business. The word I keep saying is engaged. I mean, every second he's on the field, he's either teaching a younger guy how he wants a route run or whatever, or he is on top of the quarterback coach or offensive coordinator. It's all business all the time on the field. Now, I am psyched to see a real pass rush and blocking, because in unpadded stuff, the Steeler D-line is killing the Steeler O-line. I don't know if that's just because they're really good up front on defense or it's time to worry about the O-line. But he's got Cam Hayward in his face a lot. Of course, they're not hitting him, things like that. But he's really impressive in terms of all the things, the craftiness, like he's constantly barking at he's messing with his teammates on the other side of the ball. You can tell that he's toying with them like he did in his heyday when he was on Monday Night Football going at it, just from the mental side of things. He's got all these flick of the wrists and crazy arm angles and sidearm throws and off balance stuff that I haven't seen in a very long time around here. You can see that he is still an exceptional passer of the football. Now, he hasn't had to make a ton of drive throws, the far sit on your back porch, throw back foot and throw 1,000-mile-an-hour fastball. But he definitely throws the ball 1,000 times better than Mason Rudolph or Will Howard, as he should, as you would expect. He seems to be moving around really well, but, no one's really chasing him either. Those are in like design quarterback drills, rollout drills, but he throws really well on the move. So cautiously super optimistic, but I do believe in my non-black and gold colored glasses that this will be the best quarterback they've had since Ben's arm surgery, even better than like his last year here. You know what I mean?
And this is a team that's winning 10 games anyway. So
right.
You've got to have some level of hope and expectations if you're a Steelers fan about how good that could be if you have good quarterback play versus how good they already were.
Right. Give me the 14th best quarterback. You don't have to be the league MVP and see how you can go from there. Don't take sacks, always stay in the right plays, be great from the neck up and make 5 throws that no one's been able to in a while, and turn the ball over 5 less times over the course of the year. I'm not saying this to win the Super Bowl or beat Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, etc.
Right.
But it should be better,
Remind me what the exact trades were. Was it essentially second round picks? So it was just a Metcalf
and a late pick swap. But yeah, basically number 2 for Metcalf.
Okay. And then in the Pickens got back a second, right? So it was
a third.
A third. So
Dallas,
you walked around and then you gave one guy an extension, whereas they didn't want to give Pickens an extension, essentially.
No, there was some addition by subtraction there.
Right. Yeah.
But I do think he could have a huge year for the Cowboys.
As far as off the field, can be another big improvement potentially if they weren't really on board with the kind of football character potentially that George Pickens had, and maybe personal character. I don't know.
I think that's a big thing of their offseason moves is they wanted to get some older guys that they're not tied to forever that are kind of nasty, old school, competitive dogs with something to prove. Like Metcalf's pretty nasty on the field. Ramsey's nasty everywhere.
Yeah.
Slay's got a lot of attitude to him, and Rodgers does as well.
Gross. Yeah. What's funny? Just that focus. I saw a lot of fan filmed camera stuff from the American Century Golf Tournament, Pro-Am tournament that they do in Lake Tahoe. And Mahomes is there and Aaron Rodgers is there and Steph Curry's there. And it's funny to see like what a pro athlete is doing, and they're playing golf, but they're kind of locked. Like the golf is important and they're locked into it. So a fan would be asking Patrick Mahomes for an autograph and he's like, find me later, dude. I'm not going to sign. I'm trying to hit my shot right now. And some dad had his kid throw a football at Aaron Rodgers and it kind of bounced by his feet, and Aaron Rodgers sees the ball and picks it up and just throws it. It was the wrong direction. He didn't know where it came from, but they're like, oh my God. And the kid starts crying. Like, look what he did to this kid. And it's like, dude, he's trying to golf.
No one's throwing a football at Scotty Scheffler.
Right. Yeah.
Or asking for autographs on the fourth tee, right.
And you can imagine like you're a competitor and you're a high level athlete. And I know it's this fun Pro-Am tournament and it doesn't mean as much as a real golf tournament might or an NFL game might, but
you want to win.
Wired a certain way that these guys are trying to actually play good and hit good shots too. And it's just a window into, being that old school, being that pro. You are hyper focused, and the mindset that it takes to be great is not something you're going to shut off just because you're playing golf or because you're bowling.
Yeah. I mean, a small example, yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was, I walk out of the lunchroom, and where I am behind the scenes, I mesh with where the players are walking down on the field. They call it Autograph Hill. There's tons of kids screaming, and the players often come over and sign their football cards or football or jersey or whatever. Well, it just so happened I walked out with Cam Hayward and Jalen Ramsey. They don't know who I am, and I'm not talking to them, but the three of us are walking down together, and they're not talking about how was your day, how's your wife. I mean, they are laser focused on practice, and they walk past every kid and don't sign an autograph. They don't even pretend like they're there. And they do that stuff after practice, like they're here for a job, and it's not easy,
DK Metcalf, early returns there. And is there a little connection brewing with Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf?
I have some worries because he is known as a drifter in terms of precise route running. And that was a problem with Garrett Wilson. Rodgers is about the most demanding quarterback out there of, I need you at 12.2 yards at this time because I'm going to throw it whether you're there or not. But I do think there's a chemistry brewing. He's really impressive in person, as you would imagine. But he's humongous, for one thing. And his acceleration when Rodgers hits him in stride, and again, this is against air. I mean, they're not hitting or anything, but you go, whoa. Like he's running full speed, hits him in stride, takes 2 more strides, and it's eating up grass like crazy, So last thing I have really on Metcalf, though, and I'm kind of optimistic for this perspective. But if you look at his numbers, this was a fantasy thing I stole. I think he got injured in week 7 last year. Before that, he was on career best paces for targets per game, touchdowns per game, yards per game, lighten it up. Then he tweaks a knee, misses 2 or 3 games, week 7, 8, 9, or whatever. Comes back, and by this point, he isn't quite the same. Smith-Njigba is the number 1 receiver at this point. They can't protect at this point to go downfield, so everything's short to intermediate. So his numbers post-injury are pretty pedestrian. But he looks like the guy pre-injury to me. You know what I mean? If you get that version, it's kind of exciting. You know.
And as far as outside receivers, not a ton of competition probably for target. He's going to be the number 1 guy. Have you seen a lot of 2 tight end sets?
Tons of 2, tons of 3. Tons of 3. I mean, Jonnu, Freiermuth, and Washington. Washington's a better player than people think. I mean, he is. Sometimes they'll line up Washington and Metcalf next to each other. They're the 2 hugest people you've ever seen for their position.
Yeah. You're like a nickel corner. You're like, what the heck is this?
What am I doing with this? Right. So it's interesting. I do think they have a chance to add another receiver too.
I'm sensing a buy on DK Metcalf in your fantasy leagues.
But yeah. I mean, he's going to own a huge target share. I think they'll throw the ball a little more with Rodgers than they did in the past, and he'll be the focal point. You know.
There you go. If you want to hear any more about specific Steelers or anybody's camp around the NFL, hit us up for this week's mailbag at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL in the YouTube comments as well. Of course, subscribe while you're there. And Matt and I back tomorrow right here. Peacock and Williamson.